Hi, it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome back to my channel where I make a lot of cake and cookie decorating tutorials as well as give a lot of baking business tips. And we are back for another cookie decorating video. If you're interested in how I made these chocolate sugar cookies, you can go ahead and check out this video in the upper right hand corner. So these cookies are for Chinese New Year, and honestly, these are really unconventional colors for Chinese New Year. Chinese New Year is all about those reds and golds, but the reason that I went with navy was because I had a lot of leftover royal icing that I did not want to go to waste, and they were all different colors. But when I blended them all together, they kind of turned a blue color, and then I just deepened it a little bit. So in order to get navy blue, it is a huge mishmash of colors, but mostly blue, a little bit of purple, and then I also add in a little bit of black to get this depth. And for this part right here, I am using pipe and flood consistency. Now, sometimes what can happen when you're mixing a really dark color like this, you'll notice that it gets a little bit frothy, your icing, because you're whipping it so much. So if that happens, all you need to do is add a little bit of extra water on there, and it should be the right consistency. So even if you mixed it up to the right consistency when it was white, you still might have to adjust if you did a lot of mixing for the food colorant. Now you'll notice here I'm using mason jars, and I flip them upside down because I'm actually going to make them into Chinese lanterns. Now I just wanted to show you something here. This is the difference between dehydrating and just leaving it out to dry. So those are both dry, but the one with the deeper color was dehydrated. I find it gets a little bit of a nicer, deeper color. In order to dehydrate your cookie icing, all you do is you place this into the oven at 170 degrees Fahrenheit for about 5 to 10 minutes. You just want to make sure that it's opaque on the top, and then go ahead and add in your details. In order to do the brushed royal icing details on here, it's important that you use piping consistency that is slightly loose, not too loose, just slightly, so it's not super, super dry. And then you want to run that brush in a little bit of water and then through that icing. Now, if you're finding that it's really just taking off a lot of the icing, or things are kind of looking goopy instead of that nice brushed look, then that might mean you need a little bit less water on your paintbrush, or you need to make sure that your royal icing is a little bit thicker. If it's too thick, it'll come right off when you brush it through though, so do be careful. Play around with the textures. Don't just leave it. You can always scrape off that royal icing that is brushed. Now for all of the designs today, I stick to relatively the same rule of thumb. So I'm creating 5-petal and 6-petal flowers all over the place, and I'm adding on those little scrolls that you saw, and sometimes I'm placing the flower in the center, sometimes I'm placing it to the side, and then I'm kind of making sure that I loop around again. This one here is actually just a 4-petal. And I really like this double petal on here because we are using the exact same icing color. I find it looks really good when you just jam pack it full of details. It almost feels a little bit like fabric to me when I look at this. A lot of Chinese lanterns have different patterns like this, but again, more traditionally, it's usually gold on red, but I went for a little bit more of an unconventional color. And for this flower here, I decided to go with a point at the end, and I'm utilizing those lines to really fill in the detail. You'll also notice for this outer portion that I decided to mimic the point of the petal, and I'm brushing it through just like I did with all of those other patterns. By the way, brushed royal icing is one of the easiest techniques that you can start out with because it doesn't require any control whatsoever, because you can always use that paintbrush to kind of make it go in the spot that you want it to go into. On this particular cookie, I decided to add some dots. Word of advice, always add borders like this second. If you try to do it in the first place, it can be a little bit tricky to get that line border perfect so that it's not going all over the place. I'm just adding on some finishing touches here, and what you will notice as well is I'm using pipe and flood consistency to fill in some of those places and to add some of those little dots in the center. By the way, you might be catching some glimpses of my hair here and there. I'm starting a new short series called Beauty While Baking, where basically what I'm doing is I'm testing out different beauty hacks or beauty products and seeing if they do their magic in the time that it takes me to decorate these cakes and cookies. I am a huge, huge multitasker, so whenever I can do things that kind of pamper myself while getting work done, I will do it. So I hope you guys will enjoy that series. So far, not picking up a whole lot of steam, but when you try new things, that sometimes happens. Now, it is the year of the rabbit, so of course we're going to do a little rabbit silhouette here. I wanted to keep these modern. I've seen really cute cookies with little bunnies all over them, and they're nice and puffy and filled in. I want to do the exact same pattern all over my bunny here and just keep that silhouette. Comment down below what you're the year of. I am the year of the horse. I filled in the ear with pipe and flood consistency because I'm actually going to go over that in gold later. Now keep in mind this is a lantern, so on the bottom here we're going to create this border, and then I'm just going to pipe these little lines. When you're piping lines, I know it can seem really intimidating. You just need to have even pressure and make sure you lift that piping bag. My first round of writing here is really terrible, and unfortunately what I usually do when I film is I only film the first one, and then if there's a lot of them, then I'll film the last one. But in this instance, I only ended up filming this one. So I make a few mistakes on here. Do whatever script you would like. I always just choose my most comfortable writing style, which for me is script. Now I'm going ahead and I'm adding on some numbers. I'm going to fill in some of these and then I'm going to leave some of them blank. I am freehanding this. You could easily project this onto your cookie, but I just wanted to freehand it because I want to make sure that it all fits beautifully and nicely, and I don't want to get out my projector for this one little thing that I'm going to be doing. So you'll notice here, I use this kind of cheating trick to make sure that everything is going to fit. I knew 2023 wouldn't work if I just went straight down, so I kind of nestle the numbers behind one another. These are the tricks of the trade that I really learned when I was making orders for people. You know, when people want a super ridiculously long name or message on a cookie, I would use tricks like this. So if they wanted bubble letters of some sort, I would kind of tuck things behind one another. With my script writing too, I'll often do this, where it's kind of that loopy script that you can kind of fake and make sure that it all fits. So as you can see, that was a very ugly cookie, but not to worry because I scraped it off and we're going to make it beautiful again. Gold and navy go really well together, so I'm just airbrushing some gold onto here. I'm using a Maramis today, and I'm using Cookie Countess stencils. Everything that I'm using in today's tutorial will be down in the description box below, where you will be able to find the links to these things. By the way, if you used an edible airbrush machine in the past, but you've gotten overspray and it never gives you a clean look, you really need one of these stencil genies as well as the screen. This really helps prevent any overspray, and you don't have to think about it either, which is the best part. And for this last one here, I'm just going in and spraying it, no stencil required. Time to cover up that ugly bit. And because these aren't for a commissioned order or anything, I can be really creative with this and do whatever I would like to. So I'm going to make this super loopy flower. Just using these little lines to really fill everything in. And I actually ended up really liking this particular lantern cookie. By the way, if I didn't mention it before, anytime you're doing lines like this that are quite delicate, you do want to have a fairly thick piping icing. You can achieve this for a second with pipe and flood consistency. And what I mean by that is it will hold the line, but you're never going to get that super nice taut line that you're probably looking for. Another tip that I also want to give you as well, having been someone who's made a lot of mistakes because of the consistency of royal icing, if you leave royal icing in your piping bags, you're going to notice that it loosens up over time. So if you've left a project for a day or even for a few hours and then you come back to it, you will need to re-whip your icing so that it goes back up to that same consistency that you originally had. So I really didn't know what to put on these last few cookies, but I could kind of hear my parents' voices in my head saying that I should probably put some sort of words that represent prosperity and good luck. So I decided to go with happiness, luck, and health. Seriously, my parents were very big on us not talking about sickness or even something more sinister on Chinese New Year specifically. In fact, if we said it, they would always say a phrase that meant that it would get rid of the bad thing that we just said. Here is me attempting to pipe Chinese characters, and my stroke order is all off. If you don't read Chinese or write Chinese, there is a particular order you're supposed to write in, but I don't know it super well, so I just took a guess. But it says Happy New Year if you're curious. Now I'm going in with some fully edible luster dust and mixing it with a little bit of vodka. The reason that I say fully edible is because there are luster dusts out there that they say are just for decorative purposes and are not technically FDA approved. But I know that a lot of cake decorators and cookie decorators still use it, and you just have to make sure that if you are using something that is non-toxic but not actually edible, quote unquote, make sure that you're letting your clients know that you are going to be using that, or else they might opt for no gold or no metallics on their desserts. Now, if you're wondering how much vodka you should add to how much luster dust, it really depends on the quality of the luster dust, but just start with a few drops of vodka at a time and really mix well, because a little bit goes a long way. Here are the cookies in the natural light. I feel like that artificial light was not doing these justice. I really, really love the color combination for these. And you'll notice I added on these little royal icing flowers. I made them before and I just kind of stuck them on with a little bit of royal icing. They're made with Russian tips, so I didn't have to do anything too fancy for them. Now let's get into the pricing for these cookies. Now, personally, I don't think I would offer these as a custom order. They were a lot of work, a lot of detail put in there. And because they're such varying sizes, it makes it difficult to price these out as a custom. So I would, in general, group these together to make stock orders, and especially because it's for something very specific. These are for Chinese New Year. They have Chinese characters on them. So I would probably price these for a dozen, maybe like 3 or 4 of each type. I would price this at $60 per dozen. This just helps account for the size difference, but it also accounts for the fact that some of these cookies have a lot more detail, some of them are a little bit more simplistic, so it just really balances it out. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading weekly, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!